2008 may have been a good year for Britney Spears' agent, but for automakers, it was a bloodbath of epic proportions. The year's sales figures arrived this week, spelling bad news for nearly every car maker. Slides of more than 20% were common across the big three brands, with Chrysler seeing the worst company-wide pullback at 30% compared to 2007. Japanese and German brands noted a mixed bag of bad news, with BMW and Toyota down close to 15%, Mercedes and Mazda down nearly 11%, and the Honda brand getting off relatively unscathed at around 6% down. The award for Loser of the Year belongs to Hummer, with sales down nearly 50% from a high of 34 inches. See what we did there?
It was a November to remember for the auto industry. Of course, they'll remember it for sucking. Edmunds.com says sales could be down 28% from a year ago to the lowest number since 1992. Thank you, global economic downturn. Okay, but does that mean a government bailout is a guarantee?
This week, Detroit's big three, that's General Motors, Ford Motor Company, and Chrysler, for those of you who've been living under a rock, presented Congress with their plans for surviving the global economic downturn. Are you guys serious still? Anyway, altogether, the three put in a bid for $34 billion in aid. That's more than a third larger than the company's estimate last month. GM alone says it needs up to $18 billion in taxpayer bucks to stay in business. That includes an immediate infusion of $4 billion and up to $8 billion by early next year, and an additional $6 billion line of credit. In exchange, GM will cut executive pay and possibly start a sell-off of underperforming brands. That plan could mean liquidation of the company's Hummer, Saab, and Saturn brands, and included the shrinkage of Pontiac to just a few specialty models. The plan could also mean layoffs of tens of thousands and put nearly 2,000 dealers out of business. Without the money, GM executives said GM could only have weeks to live. Automakers take what could be a knockout blow from the U.S. Senate. That after Republicans block a $14 billion bailout package. Opposition senators scuttling the bill put the blame on those greedy auto workers with their lavish tract houses, their hotshot mortgages, their I think I'm better than you pre-owned cars, and all that fancy putting your kids through community college on 2 middle-class salaries while sucking up rising utility bills and a falling standard of living arrogance. Those inconsiderate bastards. I'm Derek D. And you're watching a very special Oops, There Goes the U.S. Auto Industry episode of Fastlane Daily. Roll the dirt. The global economic downturn takes a bite out of motorsports. Honda ditches its Formula One aspirations after an investment that makes the moonshot look like a pinecone bird feeder. And Audi says, Auf Wiedersehen, American Le Mans. Could your favorite racing series be next? Honda's blaming the global economic downturn on its decision this week to pull out of Formula One racing. The company announced this week it was shuttering its F1 team, effectively putting drivers Jenson Button and Rubens Barrichello on the unemployment line. You want to throw kisses instead of shoes at the White House this morning. That after President Bush pledged up to $17.4 billion in loans for U.S. automakers. Yay. It's official. The White House says yes to a cash infusion for U.S. automakers. The beleaguered U.S. auto industry will get emergency loans of up to $17.4 billion from the U.S. federal government. That in return for a major restructuring of debt and labor costs in 2009. President Bush, in a statement earlier today, said the plan was necessary to avoid what he called, quote, a disorderly collapse, as opposed to those orderly collapses. Yeah. The president also said federal aid would provide operating cash while the companies prove that they can become viable businesses. The funds will come from the Troubled Asset Relief Program, or TARP, set up to aid the financial industry. The loans include $13.4 billion now, with an additional $4 billion available in February, and a date with Philip Seymour Hoffman. General Motors this morning posted its 2008 numbers, and let's put it this way, there won't be any cake. The company posted a fiscal 2008 loss of $30.9 billion. It's the worst loss in decades for the U.S. automotive giant, and it happens just as company bosses prepare to meet with U.S. government officials to outline how much federal money the company will need to survive. Stagnant credit markets and falling consumer demand kept kept buyers away, contributing to a $9.6 billion quarterly loss in the last 3 months of the year. Revenue fell during that period from $46.8 billion to $30.8 billion, as the company burned through an additional $6 billion in cash. Two Republican senators say the story of General Motors has only one chapter: 11. Speaking on separate news talk shows this past weekend, John McCain of Arizona and Richard Shelby of Alabama said reorganization by a bankruptcy court is the best route to a GM turnaround. Bankruptcy, they say, would give GM more leverage to negotiate union and supplier contracts while reducing the need for government aid. Opponents say a court-ordered meltdown of the corporate colossus will result in huge job losses, a catastrophic tipping point in an already shaky economy. The senator's outspoken plea comes less than a week since GM auditors expressed, quote, substantial doubt over GM's survival.
Now, what Obama has done today by saying no money for General Motors, no money for Chrysler, essentially Chrysler now has 30 days to live. This is absolutely crazy. So we're approaching the point of thermodynamic collapse. Now, let me just say something. We got to focus also not only on what they do, what do we want to do? My program for the auto industry goes like this: nationalize them, protect them from the hyena creditors, especially Chrysler. Chrysler is owned by a hedge fund, Cerberus fund. Rip it out of their hands, nationalize it. Then at that point, kick out the current management and put in industrial engineers who would be competent managers of production. You've got to wipe out derivatives wherever they exist, right? General Motors Acceptance Corporation is full of derivatives. Wipe that out. That's part of your general campaign, to wipe out derivatives wherever they're found. And then reconvert those plants. Not to build gangrene cars, right? Not to build these crazy things with batteries that go 30 miles at 20 miles an hour. You could build nuclear plants. You can build tractors for the third world. You can build maglev railway. You can build rolling stock for modern railroads. And you can build equipment for a space program. If you're talking about exploration, colonization, and industrial production on the moon, Mars, and other nearby objects,